You ready, Jimbo?
Feel I could have used the time more productively. As Pip's side win big in the derby at Turf Moor. Scott Parker bus, but Liverpool beat Burnley just. At the Emirates, Arsenal feeling Zubasonic. At the GTAC, Sade is a smooth operator. And at the end of the day, we're here to take stock of what it all means on the Totally Football Show. Sunday the 14th of September and live for some on YouTube and safely polished up on the podcast platform of your choice. For those in no hurry, it is the Totally Football Show today, consisting of Duncan Alexander.
Hello, James.
All right, Duncan. Yeah. Also here, Tom Williams.
Hello, James.
Hello, Tom. And Jay Harris.
Hey, James.
Nice to see you, Jay. Tom's been in Paris this weekend, haven't you, Tom?
I have. Was that a rhyme with Jay's surname?
It was.
So good you don't even know you're doing it, James. I mean, those are the levels we're hitting.
Yeah.
Accidental rhymes from the off.
Indeed so.
But yes, I was.
Okay. To do the French match of the day, which is called?
Match of the Day, which started out as a highlights programme. Okay. So it was very much the French version of Match of the Day. And then it became the vehicle for Canal Plus's coverage of live Premier League games. But they liked the name so much that they kept it. So
magnificent. What were you doing on it yesterday?
I was doing my usual English football guy role. I was working alongside Olivier Dacour, former Everton and Leeds United legend. And watching all the games and trying to say insightful things about them.
In French?
In French.
What were the French most excited about?
They must have loved yesterday, right? Because there were hardly any goals, which is the sort of, the trademark.
No, they want
of
a
League
break. They want a break from that.
Suppose,
They rely on the Premier League for excitement. So actually, they were bereft at the lack of goal action. I've enjoyed Arsenal's performance.
Right.
I think most French people still have a bit of a soft spot for Arsenal. And obviously finished off with the Chelsea game and the late drama at the GTAC.
Well, yeah, and Jay, you were there to see that.
Yeah, I was. Pretty good performance from Brentford under Keith Andrews. I think that's quite a big moment for him. I know they went 1-0 up, but I think to score so late is pretty big for him.
Right. I remember you, before I think the season got too far underway, saying that all those people predicting doom and gloom for the Bees this season with their set-piece coach wildly out of his depth, with everybody having left. People were maybe being a little bit pessimistic, and how right you've been proved if that performance was anything to go by. Yeah. We'll hear more about that game very shortly. But Duncan, where were you this weekend?
I was at home. I was working yesterday, but I was keeping a roving eye across the whole of football.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Did that include Wickham's trip to Peterborough?
Sadly so, yes. Yeah. Peterborough, who hadn't won all season, but now they have. So what a kind club Wickham are.
Deary me. Results from Premier League match day 4. So Sunday saw the Manchester derby, which featured 2 goals from Erling Haaland and another from Phil Foden. And a 3-0 victory, as Mass fans will agree, against Manchester United. Earlier on the Sunday, Burnley lost 1-0 to Liverpool in the 95th minute. Heartbreaking scenes for Scott Parker and co. Saturday, Arsenal were 3-0 winners. Arsenal against Forest. That's the Gladiator opening sequence Classico, of course. It was also Ange's debut on the Forest bench, but the second straight game that Forest had lost 3-0 in. And there was a 3-0 win as well for Spurs against the side that beat Forest by that scoreline last time out, West Ham. Brentford held Chelsea to a 2-2 draw. Newcastle had a 1-0 win against bottom of the table Wolves, while Fulham moved out of the bottom 3 with their first win of the season, a 1-0 victory over Leeds. Elsewhere, Bournemouth beat Brighton 2-1, and there were goalless draws for Everton and Villa, and Palace and Sunderland. We're going to begin at the Etihad. Comms, Charlie, is it? Do you think?
Yeah,
All right. Quite the Oh, let me just. Quite the week for. Quite the week for Erling Haaland. 5 goals for Norway against Moldova midweek, and a couple here. Could have had at least one more in Man City's 3-0 victory over Man United. The goals, first of all, pretty special. Tom.
Yeah, and in many ways, playing Moldova is kind of ideal preparation for Manchester United because in terms of defensive robustness, there are similarities. But yeah, no, I mean, 3 really nice goals. Jeremy Doku playing a key role in the first with that wriggle into the box. Cross gets blocked back to him, puts it back in, and then Foden steers the header past Altay Bayindir. And then, yeah, Haaland, the beautiful build-up to the second goal. Little nutmeg, Nico O'Reilly. Phil Foden with like a kind of elastico pass to Doku. Slips in Haaland, little dink. And then the third goal, I mean, absolute calamity. United cough up possession inside their own half. Haaland is released, and you're thinking very briefly, is there any, if we ran this simulation 1 million times, would Harry Maguire ever catch up with Erling Haaland? I suspect the answer to that question is no.
Yeah, the computer definitely says no. I also love goals where the striker basically looks offside, but he's in his own half. So it's just absolute schoolboy stuff.
How good was City? How bad were United?
I think I was really disappointed by Ugarte. I think he was sort of culpable, not just for a couple of the goals, but a couple of other chances that City had. You know, Tom just mentioned the nutmeg from Nico O'Reilly, and it's on Ugarte. And I just think you just don't need to dive in and where Nico O'Reilly is right on the touchline. Just need to hold your ground, and then he's completely out of position. I don't think we touched upon the chance where Haaland goes round Bayindir and hits the post, but that all comes from Ugarte's just woeful back pass, and then De Ligt is forced to try and play a snap pass into midfield, gets intercepted, City on the attack. And then the Reinders chance where he somehow chips the ball wide. When I was watching the replay, I just thought, he started in midfield, you can see him making the run, and just no one follows him. So it's far too easy to play against Man United. The amount of time City just had so much space to run into was ridiculous.
That said, they could have been back in the game had Gigi Donnarumma not pulled off a magnificent save on Brighton and Bournemouth at where the scoreline 2-0 would have made it interesting.
I mean, it was just the most, oh yeah, that's why they signed Donnarumma thing I've ever seen. It was like, well, that's going in. Oh no, here's the man with the strongest wrists on the planet. And I've never seen a goalkeeper congratulated so much after a save. It was like every player came up to him and was like, thank you.
Roy Keane must have been particularly furious about that.
But yeah, I mean, obviously people focused on Donnarumma's passing before the game. A couple of slightly shaky moments, but he didn't put anyone into trouble at any point. So yeah, a perfect debut.
City only had 45% of possession. You know, they've been moving away from the old Guardiola model slowly but steadily. Playing with 4 centre-backs across the back was one indication of that. Signing Erling Haaland was another indication. I think signing Gianluigi Donnarumma is almost the biggest indication of all. They're not going to bother trying to build up from the back as intricately as they could with Ederson because Guardiola is just embracing the chaos. And, you know, United did create a decent amount of chances. You know, Donnarumma made that one great save, and Mbeumo was actually pretty lively for United, got in good positions. But this is the new, Man City. And I think Donnarumma's arrival it really kind of shows the extent to which Guardiola's thinking has shifted.
Get it long, hit Haaland, let Foden feed off scraps. Yeah. So it works. Yeah. So I think, to be fair to United, the front three were all right. Sort of Sesko, his first start in the Premier League, and I thought, you know, he made a lot of runs, a bit like Gyökeres in a couple of early Arsenal games. He made a lot of runs and just wasn't seen, and he kept like going past the last defender. It's almost been like, oh, well, you know, is anyone going to see me? But and
he ran a bit.
But his movement was good, and Mbeumo, you know, had that chance that Donnarumma saved, missed a couple late on, very much consolation territory. But he is, you know, a very good player, as Jay well knows.
He's lively, and it was also the moment where Diallo sort of fakes the shot, crosses it, and Mbeumo's like 3 yards out of goals, almost come at him so quickly, and Donnarumma makes the save. But I think with him,
a mirror chance as well.
Yeah, I think with Mbeumo at least he was always trying to do something. There might have been times where he was shooting from too far out, but he was at least trying to give a little bit of impetus.
Well, last season we saw Bruno Fernandes as kind of lone figure, desperately trying to keep the the team afloat, kind of the Jared Bowen figure at Old Trafford. And I wonder if that's going to be a little bit Brian Mbeumo's role this season as well. Where are we at with the win stats now for Ruben Amorim?
So he has won 6 Premier League matches since he was appointed.
Out of how many, Tom?
Out of 31, I think, or something like that. And of the 6 teams he's beaten, 4 of them are no longer in the Premier, or 4 of those wins, rather, came against teams that are no longer in the Premier League. Just to add some further unhelpful context. I think one of United's big problems is they do not have a midfield, or they have not figured out the midfield configuration. They bought lots of shiny new attackers, some of whom look really good. I think Dorgu looks a better fit at left wing back than some of the other players they've tried there. They've got good centre backs, but they want to play a style of football that Ruben Amorim's choice of central midfielders are not capable of playing it. Ugarte being the prime example, but because they've now got Mbeumo and Cunha when he's fit, or Diallo today, Fernandes has to drop deeper. He can't play there. I thought Kobbie Mainoo did quite well when he came on, given that he's been getting a bit of criticism from his own coach of late. But I think that is the problem area.
Okay, so that's Man United. But Man City, how good were they after their back-to-back defeats? A thumping for their neighbours. Yeah,
well, it's just, this is the kind of the roller coaster pattern with City, isn't it? Since the rot first set in about a year ago, they play really well. And City are back. Oh, we're wrong to doubt them. And then they go and lose a game that they shouldn't have lost the very next week. So I think you need to judge them against better teams than United.
Yeah, they've beaten Wolves and United. All right, fair enough. Okay. They've lost to Brighton and Tottenham, who look like better teams, or better organised teams.
Well, they have Napoli coming up on Thursday, with Kevin De Bruyne returning to the Etihad. We'll be recording a special extra Totally Football show on Friday, actually, to comment on that game and the other big game taking place in Thursday's Champions League phase fixtures, which is Newcastle-Barcelona.
One last stat on this game. This is the 57th Manchester derby in the Premier League. The first one not to see a yellow or red card. Oof. Now, I'm not one to say the game was gone, but...
I imagine Roy Keane would have something to say about that. All right. Anyone else want to outlast stat? Duncan's last stat?
You can't outlast stat, man.
Okay. All right. Also, on Sunday, and somewhat less eventfully, Liverpool went to Turf Moor and had a very frustrating 94.5 minutes until a crazy handball from Hanni-ball saw all of Burnley's fine defensive work undone. Mo Salah stepped up. I'm not sure who saw. Tom, did you see this game?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Heartbreaking for Scott Parker. Famously, he'd lost 9-0 in his previous encounter while Bournemouth manager with Liverpool. But I imagine that this one late goal must have hurt almost as much as those 9.
Yeah, massively. And, Burnley have lost 3 of their 4 games so far this season and won the other one at home to Sunderland. But they've been quite unfortunate. They lost 3-0 at Spurs on the opening day, but they weren't terrible.
They lost to United with a last minute.
And they lost to Manchester United. And again, you go back to that United game. They're 2-2 going into stoppage time, and Jadon Anthony tugs Amad Diallo's shirt right on the edge of the box, literally the same patch of grass where Hannibal Mejbri was standing this afternoon, albeit in a different stadium, when he inexplicably chose to lift his elbow above his head like that.
And turn his back.
Turf floor, you could call it.
A very, very significant turf floor. So, they've been very close to getting creditable results against, an albeit quite feeble Man United team and the defending champions.
Do you think his manager would have given him a Hannibal lecture after?
It is entirely possible, along with everyone else who was at Turf Moor, because they defended pretty well, prior to that Burnley. It wasn't like Martin Dubravka had the busiest afternoon of his life. They were kind of keeping Liverpool at arm's length to an extent, and the pressure was mounting, and you kind of thought, okay, they've probably survived here. But for the 4th game running, Liverpool make the difference late on.
Yeah. That was the 44th cross that Liverpool had put in, which saw the Hannibal handball.
Liverpool had 27 shots, sounds good, but only 4 were on target, obviously including the penalty. So, yeah, it looked, Burnley went 5-4-1. It was very much not Vincent Kompany's Burnley, but that's kind of what promoted teams should do, right? Against the champions. And, yeah, they probably did deserve a point, but didn't get it.
Wasn't all Hannibal's fault. There was also the red card about 10 minutes before the end.
Yes, Lazio Gachukwu. Yeah.
Right. A second yellow. The first one of which was a crunching challenge on McAllister's ankle, I think.
Yes, and he had to go off at half-time.
Liverpool also subbed Kirkes before half-time, which was a rare manager spotting that this player is probably going to get sent off.
Kirkes has been a little bit too enthusiastic since he's joined Liverpool, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Well, the yellow card there was for a egregious bit of theatrics, and some suggestions that Arne Slot maybe gave him a piece of his mind as he left the field as well. One hopes so.
He was booked for diving, and then he gave away a foul just inside his own half as Burnley were counter-attacking.
It was
and
the
there
last
was a
man,
little moment of like, is he going to get sent off it? And he wasn't. And I think that's when Slot thought, yeah, need to get him off. So he did, he seemed to be explaining himself as Kirkes went off. And they seemed to be on relatively good terms. But I think all of Liverpool's signings are still finding their feet, and most of the attention is on Hugo Ekitike, who started very well, Florian Wirtz, who started quite slowly. I think Kirkes has struggled a little bit. I mean, Madueke gave him a real chasing in the Arsenal game.
Bournemouth did as well on the opening day.
Yeah, So,
well, one of them we haven't seen yet, and that's Alexander Isak.
Did think the reaction to him not being in the team was a bit weird. Everyone was like, "Where is he? Why is he not?" But it's like he didn't have a pre-season.
Strike again. What is it now?
Yeah. But
But the fact that he wasn't on the bench was perhaps
ease him
what
in.
people were surprised about.
Ease him in.
I guess they just don't need to take any risks with him.
Right. And Slot's talking about potentially using him on Wednesday when they'll be taking on Atletico Madrid in the Champions League. Not at all.
Sweden are underperforming in the World qualifying group, aren't they? So their need to throw him on and see if he can do anything is a bit more pressing than Liverpool, who've got a 100% record.
So true. Yeah, it's a busy week, I was going to say, of Champions League, but Duncan.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, fans of teams who aren't Liverpool and who think they might win the league were left dismayed at another late winner from Liverpool. But it occurred to me, when Liverpool won the league in 1990, the following season, 1990-91, that's how it works. They won their first 8 league. Yeah, they won their first 8 league games that season. Everyone was like, "Well, they're clearly just going to do it again." I think they had a record of 12 wins and 2 draws from their first 14, and then just fell away. So, I mean, we've said this a few times already this season, but it's still very, very early, and
too early to draw conclusions.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think any of their wins so far have been like the mark of champions.
So, what do you draw from that as a conclusion?
Well, too
early to say.
Yeah, too early to say.
Ultimately, where Duncan's leaving.
Ask me after Halloween. Put a little reminder in.
Can I ask you about Arsenal's 3-0 win against Nottingham Forest? There you go. For a start, should we temper our enthusiasm for this victory in light of the fact that West Ham beat Forest by the same scoreline last time out?
I don't think so. I think Arsenal were really impressive. Every flaw, if there were flaws that Arsenal had last season, they kind of solved or had solved in this game, I think. The sight last season, I think the sight of Saka and Saliba on the sidelines would have been a real blow. But I mean, Madueke was brilliant all game. Eze really grew into the game, particularly good in the second half. Gyökeres scored again. Zubimendi scored twice. He only scored twice all season last year for Real Sociedad. So they were a bit more direct as well. The second goal in particular, Calafiori knocked it on, and Eze just did a brilliant first-time cross or lateral pass, and then Gyökeres was just where you want a centre forward to be, and it just felt. I think it felt like they've made progress. Like they've now got other ways to score and other ways to win. And I think that was the big thing that cost them in the league last year.
It was a beautiful goal from Zubimendi, the first. The second, a rare header from him, but the first, I think, takes a slight nick on its way in.
I think it goes off Murillo's head. Fair play for even putting your head in the way of that shot, to be honest.
But you could see there was the camera angle behind Zubimendi. You could already see the trajectory of the ball. He'd already put an amount of swerve on it. And it's always annoying when you see a goal like that and then you realise it's been deflected. But I suspect, I think it would have gone in anyway. I think it was already swerving.
Will Arteta continue to quietly amass the Real Sociedad team from 2020?
It's working so far. The old Marino, Zubimendi, Ødegaard.
Maybe that's why Isak didn't play on Sunday.
Odegaard going off, though, in this game, and that was the bad bit of news for Arsenal.
But also just to add to what Duncan was saying about Saliba and Saka being out, Declan Rice on the bench,
right.
Odegaard hobbling off early on. If that had happened last season, this is exactly the kind of game that Arsenal would have probably struggled in. And I think the goal that Gyökeres scored, that is exactly the kind of goal he's been signed to score, and the kind of opposition he's been signed to score against. These are the kind of games that Arsenal struggled in last season, when they had all the possession and they had to break down a well-organised defence. Their record in games against other big teams in recent years is really good. They're able to get points in those games. It was these games that cost them last season, and that's just another sign that things appear to be moving in the right direction.
I think we should give a bit of credit to Mosquera as well. It's only his second appearance.
Yeah.
And I think what has caught my eye is that he's very good at just punching passes in between the lines very quickly. He's definitely a bit more confident in that than maybe you'd expect. So 2 games and he's performed pretty well. Obviously, Duncan mentioned Madueke. That's probably quite a significant moment for him.
Right. I deleted all my old social media posts saying, why did Arsenal sign Madueke? And now I'm typing one out saying, why did Chelsea sell him?
Yeah, it's a really good question, but I think he got a standing ovation at the Emirates. And as like you alluded to, there are a lot of Arsenal fans maybe foolishly signing petitions and saying that they didn't want to sign him in the summer. And obviously, as Tom mentioned, Madueke played very well against Kirkez at Anfield, but that's away. So for Madueke to have a performance like that in front of the Arsenal fans is probably a really significant moment for him to sort of say, I'm here, I can kick on now. And why Chelsea got rid of him, it baffles me because, as you mentioned, I was at the GTEC last night and I had Jamie Gittins and a couple of other players, and I wasn't that impressed by what they were doing, so it didn't make much sense to me.
I mean, the Chelsea model is to sign players and then sell them on. I mean, whether you should sell them to one of your main rivals and improve them.
Sometimes it works.
I mean, sometimes you loan them sterling and, it doesn't work as well. But then, that's why I didn't really get the Arsenal fans, the ones that signed petitions in the summer. Like, they saw with Havertz that, he left Chelsea with a not stellar reputation at the end, but has been a really important and valuable player. I mean, you cannot judge players you can judge them on how they play at clubs. That's essentially what we do. But
not until 10 games into the season.
Well, exactly. But I think it's really good. And Madueke was so he was going on his right foot a lot, and in a way that Saka probably doesn't as much. I think Saka will always cut back on his left, and it was really impressive.
Well, Arsenal's backup right winger for Saka last season was Raheem Sterling, who was ineffective. Obviously played Nwaneri a lot, who came on in this game and was quite good. And then Nwaneri got injured because he was playing too often because he was only 17, 18 at the time. So I think Madueke also probably relieves some of the pressure on Nwaneri and Dowman to sort of be amazing week in, week out.
And the Arsenal fans even sang his name yesterday, which must be the quickest turnaround from petition against his signing, graffiti telling the manager that he needs sacking, to getting your own song.
What is the Madueke song, Tom?
It wasn't all that inventive, but it was about...
I think it was very player early on in a career at a club when you basically just go for one of the classic tunes. So,
Yeah.
Noni Madueke or something like that. It was something like that. I'm sure they'll come up with a more, inventive, specific one.
A lot to work with in terms of syllables, rhymes.
Hey, noni. Could go to
if you wanted
English
to go
folk.
more down an English folk route.
He's got all 5 vowels in his name, which you've got to respect.
Spoiled for choice.
As for Ange Postecoglou, who had, I think, one training session with Nottingham Forest prior to this match, it was suggested to him post-game that it will be a while before we'll see Ange ball at the City Ground. No, mate, it will not be weeks. It will be Wednesday. And when Ange makes a prediction, you best listen.
This is what made me laugh when you said well-organised defence. I was thinking, how many times did I see Spurs have a well-organised defence last year? Not many.
The funny thing about Postecoglou yesterday, and him giving that response, was you're like, oh, we're still doing this. We are still doing this. I mean, of course, he's not going to have changed since he left Tottenham, but the desire to be just slightly more prickly than the question, necessarily invites you to be, that remains very much intact.
I wonder if they could be in serious trouble, because Ola Aina picked up an injury on international duty, first choice, I think, right back. I can't remember. I know he's versatile, he can play both sides. Murillo obviously went off with an ankle knock. So obviously Spurs struggled last season when the injuries hit in and Postecoglou couldn't rotate, and already he's lost a key member of his starting 11. Don't know how serious the Murillo knock is, and you just think, all it takes is one more and it's a slippery slope.
They've got a trip to Swansea in the third round of the Carabao Cup on Wednesday. Arsenal, meanwhile, will be off in Bilbao, a trip back to the Basque Country for Mikel Arteta, and indeed all the former Real Sociedad boys. That's obviously in the Champions League. That's Tuesday, the early game. We've got an early Totally Football Show European edition. That should be with you Tuesday morning, looking ahead to that game. All the Matchday 1 fixtures, Liverpool against Atletico Madrid. It'll be big. Spurs against Villarreal. Chelsea make the trip to Bayern. Ooh. Newcastle host Barcelona. And as previously mentioned, Man City have Napoli. Napoli, who are top of the league in Serie A. A fine 3-1 win against Fiorentina on Saturday night, which saw Rasmus Højlund come on and almost immediately score the kind of goal that he could never score at Old Trafford.
There's never been a better time to leave Manchester United and know that your career is immediately going to improve.
The man he beat, of course, was De Gea on a similar note. Earlier that day, should mention an absolutely extraordinary Derby d'Italia between Juventus and Inter. We'll be diving into that on Tuesday morning with James Horncastle. Lloyd Kelly opening the scoring of what was a 7-goal thriller. Some very, very special. 7 goals, only 8 shots on target, by the way.
And both Thuram brothers on the score sheet.
Curiously, only one of them celebrated, which I was taken aback by. So Marcus Thuram didn't celebrate. Ephraim Thuram did.
Both do the little
I thought they copied each other.
No, he did point to his, but he very kind of visibly didn't celebrate beyond just signalling his name. His dad was there in a rather smart hat watching on. And I wasn't sure if possibly it was kind of out of respect for his dad's Juventus heritage. But it seems a bit strange to take the non-celebration, not just to your own back catalogue, but your father's.
Just when you thought non-celebrations couldn't get any worse, there's a whole other Pandora's box.
There's probably a very, very good reason.
Where's Adebayor when you need him?
Well, exactly.
Did we see the picture of the ref cam shot of him looking at the Thuram brothers? It's very good. They just look nonplussed, but it's quite rare. It's a rare benefit of the new ref cam era, I'd say.
Duncan's not there for ref cam, Tom?
As in, am I team ref cam?
Yes.
It's a stupid gimmick, but every time it happens, I'm like, oh, ref cam. I'm gonna avoid judgment at least for 10 games.
Jay?
It just looks like something out of a video game.
Yes.
It just sort of throws me off slightly.
Yeah.
I find it hard to take seriously, and this is also when they give a player a chest-worn camera in the warm-up. When you see their arms go in front, it looks like you're in a
very
first-person
isn't
computer.
Yeah.
Early days. Chelsea heading to Munich to take on a Bayern team who've won all 5 of their matches so far with an average goal scored of 4 per game. Yikes.
It might be their year in the Bundesliga this season.
Possibly so.
Might be getting ahead of myself, but got a good feeling about Bayern.
We'll hear how Chelsea prepared for that trip next on the Totally Football Show. Woof. Quite the evening at the G-Tech on Saturday. Jay, you were there.
Yes.
So 2-2 between Brentford and Chelsea. The home side opened and closed the scoring. Mm-hmm. I mentioned before this whole notion of a washed-up Henderson pitching up there and Keith Andrews way out of his depth and all that. But early signs are that there might be something to this new look Brentford after all.
Yeah, I was actually quite impressed. I think it made sense for Brentford to sign Henderson because Norgard moved to Arsenal. But I've never really watched Henderson week in, week out, especially in the last few years. So I don't really know what he was going to bring to this team apart from the classic leadership and shouting a lot. But actually, even when he's not on the ball, he's just constantly moving around. He's trying to, offer a centre-back a passing option, a midfielder a passing option. He's playing alongside Ihor Yarmolyuk, who I think is only 20 years old. He's a very talented player, but you can just tell that he's going to grow and learn off Henderson. And then I think Henderson's very front-footed. He will always try and play a first-time cross or whip something into the box. And his assist for Charlotte's goal was fantastic. And I think arguably what's even better is that he nearly did the exact same thing 2 minutes before. So clearly already forging a connection with some of these Brentford players. There definitely was a point in last night's game where I felt that Henderson was sort of holding the hands of the other Brentford players saying, look, won the Champions League, I won this, England international, just give me the ball and I'll try and make something happen. And to be fair to him, he did.
Okay. Long throws, that was the other big news from the GTEC.
Yeah, I was a little bit confused why people were saying, Brentford have done well from a long throw. And they basically scored the exact same goal when they beat Arsenal 2-0 on the opening day of the Premier League 4 seasons ago, whenever it was. Like, Brentford are the purveyors of long throw-ins. It's just strange that it's Kevin Schade, the centre forward, who throws it in the box in the first place.
Well, so the name, was it Kobe? The
Michael Kayode.
Yeah, Kayode, sorry, who had a monstrous throw in the first.
Yeah, it's quite ridiculous. They've just clearly just got a whole army of them just at the training ground. They're just training them week in, week out.
Are they training them week in, week out?
Because
you spent time there.
I think so. I think what they normally do is like maybe on a Friday, dedicate half an hour at the end of a training session to doing that type of stuff. But it's extremely effective. That's sort of, I think, the opening game of the season when Brentford lost to Nottingham Forest, I was quite concerned by Keith Andrews' lineup. I thought it was a little bit naive, if I'm honest, the midfield he went for. This was a bit of a classic Thomas Frank Brentford era display where it was a 3-5-2. You had the big man Inigo Thiago flicking it on for Kevin Schade. They attacked the space in behind Chelsea. They scored from a set piece. And I think it was very pragmatic and it's what they needed to do. And I think that was a big point for Keith Andrews. They've taken 4 points from Villa and Chelsea at home. Obviously, disappointing loss to Sunderland. So I think for him, that's something he can build on.
Sorry, Duncan.
No, just on long throws. I mean, Mark Carey did a piece before the weekend about them because obviously Thomas Tuchel said last week, I'm going to use them for the World Cup. Everyone's like, what? But it's allowed. It's fine.
And Thomas Tuchel was there. So he would have been delighted.
Yeah. Well, but so this doesn't include the weekend just gone, obviously, but since the start of last season, Brentford have taken 121, which is almost double anyone else. And the team to take the fewest was Chelsea. So
is that so?
And the funny thing is that Chelsea's set-piece coach, Bernardo Cueva, spent many years working at Brentford. So you'd think if anybody was going to still use them, it would be him.
When did he leave?
He left at the beginning of last season, so he's been with Chelsea for a year.
Okay.
And he's got them good at corners. So maybe
Maybe he hasn't gone to throw-ins.
Page 7, he'll be on to throw-ins.
First year corners, second year throw-ins.
One at a time.
I must say, actually, the Henderson assist was great and that goal was good, but seeing Keith Andrews, a set-piece specialist, applaud an open-play goal made me feel a bit uneasy. I didn't like it.
His opposite number, Enzo Maresca, was his starting 11 with one eye on a trip to Munich?
I think it was one eye on a trip to Munich and one eye on the fact that a lot of his key players done a lot of travelling during the international break. I think that was one of the reasons why Estevao was on the bench. Obviously, Cole Palmer, only just coming back from injury, wasn't fit enough to start, made an immediate impact when he came on. But it did feel like quite an experimental lineup. I mean, they're already missing key players at the back, notably Levi Colwill, and then you had, Pedro Neto, Facundo Buonanotte, Jamie Gittins in support of João Pedro, who I'm not sure was necessarily signed to spend the whole season playing as the number 9, but is stepping in the absence of Liam Delap. And they did look like they were not entirely sure what they were doing and looked immediately a lot better as soon as Cole Palmer came on.
Yeah, they were up against, like I said earlier, a back 3, which is basically a back 5 for Brentford. So there are a lot of times where if João Pedro got away from Ethan Pinnock, then Nathan Collins had him. Then it would be Sepp Vandenberg. One thing I noticed was that Igor Thiago was man-marking Moises Caicedo, just seemed to be following him everywhere. I don't think he did it completely successfully. I think he got tired of chasing after him at times, but he just sort of trying to prevent them playing through the middle of the park.
Caicedo, who thought he'd won it for the Blues with that thunderous late strike, but in the end they had to share the points. Cozy Cuddles says, did we all overrate Chelsea on the back of them winning one big game in a glorified pre-season friendly tournament, the Club World Cup? Quite the game it was that they won, smashing the previously indestructible Paris Saint-Germain. But since then, asterisk, they didn't have a pre-season, but since then, 0-0 with Palace. They did get the big win against West Ham, but asterisk, West Ham. They were pretty lucky against Fulham, and then this, and they've got Bayern next. How worried should Maresca and Chelsea be?
They got Manchester United next weekend in the Premier League. So.
True, on the Saturday.
Yeah.
So Bayern on the Wednesday, I think. And then Manchester United at Old Trafford.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then it wasn't just because of the Club World Cup that people were talking about Chelsea in a positive sense. They finished last season very strongly. They finished in the top 4. They also won the Conference League. Cole Palmer hit form again at the end of the season, which always makes a big difference. So I think it's legitimate that people thought they were going to be, competing for top 4 again. I don't think anything we've seen suggests that they're going to struggle to do that.
Although Cole Palmer hitting form at the end of last season, what was the stat? How long?
Scored in since
March,
I think. We've mentioned all their signings, but we should say that Jackson played a lot for them last season. Madueke played a lot for them last season. I remember at one point, maybe January, February, it felt like their starting front 3 was Jackson, Madueke and Palmer, and 2 of them have gone. So there's also going to be an adaptation period as they bring all these new faces in.
Nice bit of context, Jake. 10 games into the season, we'll know a little bit more.
Can't say at this early juncture.
I mean, I think they're the best. If we accept Liverpool and Arsenal, are probably the 2 strongest teams. I think.
And Man City. You wouldn't have Man City in that bracket.
I'd have Chelsea and Man City as about level at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
As for asterisk West Ham, they were facing Spurs on Saturday. Spurs, who brought a little bit of that Brentford set-piece magic along to North London with Thomas Frank.
Yeah, I don't want to start on the negative for Spurs, but my only worry for them is that at the moment they're just scoring a lot of set-piece goals on the Thomas Frank. At some point, they do need to score from open play.
Do you think that's a legacy of their previous set-piece obsessed manager, Ange Postecoglou?
Possibly. I think Tom. I spent time in Hong Kong and South Korea with Spurs on tour, and some of the players were talking about, I remember Ben Davies saying, since Thomas Frank had come in, they'd sort of identified low-hanging fruit that they could take advantage of, and I think set pieces is clearly one of them. I think what is maybe more important for Spurs yesterday is that Frank rested Bentancur, Richarlison, and still got 3 points in a fantastic performance. There was no Dominic Solanke. Kolo Muani started on the bench. Xavi Simons gets his debut. Mentioning Postecoglou again. Yes, he had a bad time with injuries, but there were also occasions he didn't rotate when he had the opportunity to. And I think Thomas Frank already has shown that he just seems to be a little bit more in tune with, right, I'm going to give this player an opportunity instead. I'm going to tweak the lineup here.
And it also feels like he's got a specific plan for every game, which
he looks at the fixture list each week and goes, we're playing this team. I'm going to change the team like this because I think this will help us win the match. It's could catch on,
But then I completely agree with that. But then my only worry is that when you have a week at the start of the season to prepare for Man City away, when you've got a couple of days to prepare for Villarreal in the Champions League, and he's never had European experience before, it's a very different challenge. So yeah, I agree that he's so switched on.
Cup. He's had midweek Carabao Cup.
He's had 46 games in the Championship, so I'm not completely putting that away. But the Champions League is no doubt a step up. So I'll be intrigued to see if he still has such detailed plans when the rest between games just is so much shorter.
Although Spurs do seem to have managed their way to a Europa League fixture list in the Champions League, so that'll help.
Lucas Bergvall with a goal and an assist in this lovely header, a delicious assist.
Yep.
The hype is real, Jay.
Yeah, Bergvall's a great player. I actually met him in Sweden before he officially joined Spurs, got to spend time with him, and I thought, okay, he's a good player. I think he was only 18 at the time, and he's playing in the Swedish top flight, but I thought, he's gonna needs a lot more development before he's going to be playing in the Premier League. And this time a year ago, I thought the exact same. So we can see he's technically very good. And then I don't know, something happened. Maybe he just bulked up in the gym and he just, I guess, settled into life in a different country, moving away from home. His parents, his brothers, who are also professional footballers. And the second half of last season, he was just absolutely fantastic. And, with João Palhinha coming in, maybe he won't play as frequently as he did towards the second half of last season.
Same role, is it?
I just think Frank has a lot of different options in midfield and he'll change it around a little bit. And when you've got someone of João Palhinha's experience and quality, if he wants to play Bentancur, Palhinha and Simons, that's a conundrum for Frank to deal with. But the worry is that Bergvall and Sarr might lose minutes. But I think Bergvall's quality on the ball against teams like West Ham and Bournemouth, for example, just shows why those games like that he needs to start. He's just so good.
Right, the look of pure delight on his face after each goal as well.
Yeah, and
reminiscent of Dimitri, and Dimitri finds out the early nightclub-based meme. Not sure if you recall
yes.
that. Yeah, very similar.
Just quickly, I should say, So I think that's his second goal for Spurs. And the first goal he scored for Spurs, if I've got it right, was a Carabao Cup semi-final first leg against Liverpool, where he should have been sent off for a second yellow, and he somehow got away with it and scores like 2 minutes later. Slot and Van Dijk were going absolutely nuts on the touchline. I think Slot's assistant got sent off. So at the end of that game, he just walked straight through the mix zone. He didn't do any interviews because he knows he was only going to get asked about one thing. Should you have been on the pitch? Should you have been on the pitch? So I think from his perspective, last night was also like, I can actually celebrate this goal and enjoy all that adulation.
Nice. Spurs then with a 3-0 win. Briefly, West Ham, the woe continues.
Yeah, weren't many fans left by the end of the game. Yeah.
They weren't that bad first half. I felt like they looked like a team up a bit of confidence in their previous fixture. And I think most West Ham fans were very underwhelmed by the lack of business they did in the transfer window. But I think one area where they signed well was at fullback. Kyle Walker-Peters is a proven Premier League operator. And El Hadj Malik, one of the star men in Senegal's win against England, has got a beautiful left foot on him, set up the Callum Wilson goal against Forest just before the break, and they feel on the flanks at least there's a bit of thrust.
Yeah, Somerville and Bowen are decent, but yeah, I mean they just can't defend corners, and they gave away 13 against Spurs. So if you know, which is the most in any game this season, if you know you're not very good at them, stop giving them away for starters. And the Spurs were unlucky not to score in the first half. But they did score, and then it was overruled.
Exactly.
Harshly.
Exactly.
We should say that it was only 1-0 when Souček got sent off, and obviously at that point it's going to be even more difficult.
But it could have been 2-0.
But it should have been 2-0.
Should have been 2-0. Indeed.
Asterisk. Should have been 2-0.
Very good. We'll take a quick break there again, after which we'll have some more news for you, including Newcastle Wolves, and Bournemouth Brighton, and Fulham getting their first win of the season, and other stuff too. Dum, dum, dum. Next week's Totally Extra, as mentioned, is going to be on Friday and very much concerned with events Thursday night in the Champions League. But last week's Totally Extra came out on Saturday and featured Duncan and Michael Cox and another famous MC, Pedro Pinto, UEFA's ball handler in chief.
Button presser now, to be fair.
Is he a button presser?
Well, it's the computer, isn't it?
I haven't watched one.
I watched the draw, and it was seeing Kaká just press a button like he was on every second counts. Was not as good as the ball era, I'd say.
Nothing's as good as it used to be, including Jose Mourinho's career, and that's actually partly the subject of the aforementioned Saturday's Totally Extra. We were discussing the time when Mo really did work miracles, when he was in charge of Porto and won absolutely everything for 2 straight seasons, including the biggest thing of all. Very good. Check that out if you fancy it. A little bit of EFL news. Ruben Sellers has been sacked as Sheffield United manager. Has that now been confirmed? Has now been confirmed. This after the 5-0 defeat at Ipswich, which made it 5 defeats out of 5 this season for Ruben with the Blades. The man who's apparently going to take over is surely not Chris Wilder for the 3rd time, who was himself dismissed for losing something. Only in his case, it was the Championship playoff final, which sounds harsh. Believe the friction was based around the club's desire to use AI in their transfer planning. Is that right, Duncan?
Yeah, as a lot of EFL clubs have done recently, they've got new owners and they've sort of lent into a sort of data recruitment policy, which, Chris Wilder is not
AI based.
Yeah, it's overblown. It's basically
is it kind of like Liverpool with their laptops and
but Chris Wilder is very much not a data recruitment or AI man, I would suggest. A man who gets angry if a 4th official is eating a sandwich. Possibly isn't an AI man. I don't know.
But I mean, the one thing you can say about AI is that it doesn't need to eat sandwiches. Maybe that's how it could have been presented.
Although sandwich does have the letters AI in it.
There is that.
Same.
Where'd you draw the line?
But
where'd you cut the
doesn't
sandwich?
Consume AI, Tom. Just saying from the planet's point of view, sandwich is about the only thing that it doesn't consume.
Well, yes, indeed, James, indeed.
Dangerous times. Thursday, one of the games that we're going to be talking about in Friday's Totally Extra is Newcastle-Barcelona. 28 years and 1 day after that famous Newcastle-Barcelona with the Asprilla hat-trick and Sir Bobby and a 3-2 win for the Magpies. Woof. Do you fancy one of those again on Thursday?
Yeah.
3-2 for Asprilla hat-trick. Absolutely.
I mean, that would be a turn-up.
That would be a turn-up.
Yeah.
It's not been the best of starts to the season for Newcastle, but they did get their first win this weekend in the league. 1-0, it was a narrow one, and it was against bottom-of-the-table Wolves. Did feature, though, a debut goal for Nick Wolte-MADE. He'd only ever scored one headed goal in the Bundesliga. I found that extraordinary, given how well he headed this one.
Well, it was a weekend of great headers. His header, Bergval's, Foden's was great, including Pep on the touchline doing the classic manager helping it in.
Gabriel Goodmanson, albeit
Can I just say I also scored a header in my Sunday league? So
When the
I wasn't going to say, but you dragged it out of him, Duncan.
Well, when the ley lines collide,
as a scorer,
headers are scored.
Yourself, Jay, how good was what Wolte-MADE did?
Yeah, it's really good. I think it's probably a little bit trickier than it looks on first glance because he's sort of leaning
He has to
backwards.
back off, yeah.
So it's a really good finish right into the corner.
And his hold-up play was really good. So it was interesting to see what he would bring to Newcastle's attacking play. A different kind of player to Isak with some kind of crossover skills. He's very good on the ball, good dribbler. But something that really stood out for me was the hold-up play, and very often, particularly with a kind of old school centre forward, albeit he's a slightly more well-rounded player than that, but it can take time to develop a connection with the players around you. But he was, popping off little 1-2s here and there, little layoffs, seemed to kind of slot in quite smoothly.
The league's been crying out for a huge man with a good touch for a while. I mean, obviously he had Peter Crouch ages.
And Carroll. Oh, sorry, with a good touch.
Yeah, Carroll was more classic, powerful in the air sort of figure. Ian Ormondroyd, for older listeners, was that figure.
I quite liked Wolte-MADE's interview on Match of the Day as well, because he just said, I was happy when I scored. I was just looking at the fans. They were smiling. I was smiling. I was happy. I don't know. It's just quite wholesome. You sometimes don't get Premier League players just be that normal.
He's only young.
Yeah. Give it another year and he'll...
Yes. So Barcelona on Thursday. We'll preview that game in Tuesday's European edition. Any particular thoughts? Believe that Barcelona may be absent one star in particular, Lamine Yamal, wasn't available for this Sunday's game, which hasn't quite happened yet as we record, against Valencia, which they're having to play at their training ground because the builders didn't finish on time.
Not like Barcelona to find themselves at the mercy of administrative obstacles.
Playing at your own training ground, so that is very Tim Pot, isn't it? That is bad.
I'm pretty certain they're not supposed to get away with it as well, right? But they've got special dispensation.
How do you mean not supposed to get away with it?
Because I think there's a rule in La Liga. I'm just trying to remember what I read on the Athletic the other day, that the capacity has to be above a certain number and the training grounds substantially below that. But
6,000. So you feel it's probably not going to make quite the it's not going to be up to form. Sorry, it's not going to be up to code. Very good. Well, we'll see how they fare at the rather larger St James's on Thursday. Anything else you wanted to mention about
mention Wolves?
Oh, yeah, we should, shouldn't we? What did we want to say about them?
They're not very good.
Right.
And, I mean, weirdly, they started this game really well and could have scored twice in the opening minute. But they're
Once in the opening, 8 seconds?
Yeah, I mean that was encapsulated in my twice in the opening minute, but yeah.
No, but I felt like I felt there was even you could have gone more granular.
Yeah, always go more granular. But yeah, they're the they haven't got a point.
They
the worst start to the Premier League season in terms of straight defeats is 7, which Palace did in the Frank de Boer season, and Portsmouth did in one of their "we're going to implode financially" seasons.
Well, Palace in the Frank de Boer season are also evoked by another Premier League game this season, which is Everton's 0-0 draw with Aston Villa, and another West Midlands side struggling right now. I'm not sure which you'd rather be, Villa or Wolves. They're not that far apart in the league. I think Villa are in penultimate spot, are they not, with West Ham currently rounding out the bottom 3 and Wolves are bottom. They are, let me get this stat right. Where is it? They're the only team in the top 7, isn't it? Yet to score. So Villa are the only team in the top 7 tiers of English football. Not sure how many clubs that would be.
A lot.
150 or so?
More, I'd say.
You don't know the answer to that?
It's about 168, I think.
I actually thought you'd know that. Like, I'm disappointed.
The only one of those teams not to have scored a goal yet.
And what's particularly worrying about that is that all of their forward players are fit and available. They have got injuries in midfield, but Ollie Watkins is there, Morgan Rogers is there, all the other ones are there, and they're just not doing the business. And I sort of had half an eye on this yesterday, and Everton were the better team. Yeah. Jack Grealish, for once, not chipping in with a couple of assists, but it wasn't for want of trying. He created a shed load of chances.
5 chances more than any other player on the pitch. Toffee's had 20 shots. Only 2 were on target, but Jacob Tanswell with the illustrative stat that Michael Keane on his own had a higher XG than Villa did.
I mean, you shouldn't.
Ideal.
I mean, yeah.
Billy Mustard asked, what has happened to Ollie Watkins?
I don't know.
He looked all right for England the other night when he came on.
I think my only guess can be that Villa have had quite a turbulent summer where they've been under restrictions as to what they can do in the transfer market. Had the whole Emi Martinez debacle, only made, I don't want to call them panic buys, but maybe business they didn't expect to do at the beginning of the window when they got Elliott and Jadon Sancho in, and sort of get the sense that everything's just a little bit muddled at the moment. They sort of need things to settle down before things start heading again in the right direction. There's no doubt it's a squad that there's a lot of quality in there, but I think clearly the summer's just been a bit too hectic.
Harvey Elliott coming in and taking the number 9 shirt was not going to help matters, because that is not on.
Emi Martinez also in the side for this game, and perhaps a crucial return, which saw them at least emerge from the Hill Dickinson with a point. Shall we have a word on how amazing Bournemouth are? 2-1 winners over Brighton. The Cherries, who lost 4 of their back 5 in the summer, gave Liverpool a bit of a scare on opening day and have won 3 in a row since.
Yeah, and on Benji's Uncle Jeff coefficient, which we used in a white label form on the Athletic last week.
Just for anyone who's not familiar with Benji and his...
Yeah, it's basically you take the fixtures, the same fixtures from the previous season. So you look at Bournemouth away at Anfield last season, and you look at their other games, you look at them at home to Brighton last season. They lost. So basically they were already up 5 points on last year's fixtures going into this weekend. They've won this match, which they lost last season, so they're +8 now. So they are probably the most improved team in the Premier League, I would posit.
Who's the most not improved team?
Well, going into this weekend, it was Aston Villa.
Yeah,
so the system works. Yeah, don't tell Uncle Jeff because they want royalties, but the system
What's a white
works.
label, Duncan?
Well, yeah. What do you mean? It's just got other names. He didn't invent it. Benji needs to...
No, I know. We were explaining about what that was, and then I was thinking there'll be people who are wondering, what is a white label?
Is, like as in a non-branded version of something.
Right. I think actually white label was DJs would either... they would essentially put a white label over the hot sounds they'd be dropping so that other rival DJs couldn't pick up on their... So essentially you've just kind of own branded it, I guess.
Or improved it.
As Iraola has done to Bournemouth after all these departures. Daniel Storey has tipped them for a top 6 finish, and that would sound pretty amazing. They did have an incredible run last year, during which it looked like they might end up with something similar. They fell away. This time around, does the fact that so many clubs are going to be in Europe and they're not, does that give them an extra chance?
It might help them out. I think they had quite a nasty spell with injuries last season as well. I remember there was a shot where they've got like a little...
That's
what's the word? Yeah. You know what I'm talking about?
Box
the box. And there are like 11 of them just sitting there. I do want to shout out Alex Scott. Right. Obviously, it's a fantastic finish. I saw Bournemouth when they beat Spurs a couple of weeks ago. And I thought him and David Brooks in particular were just fantastic that day. So good on the ball, very silky. And I was thinking, how long has Scott been at Bournemouth for? Because I remember when they signed him, there was such a big thing about him being this really exciting English talent. And I knew he was injured when he first joined Bournemouth. I didn't appreciate he was injured quite a lot last season as well with a meniscus tear. So you sort of hope that if he can stay consistent and play more than he did in the last couple of seasons, then he'll just keep going from strength to strength. It was only his second Premier League goal. Semenyo is one of my favourite players to watch in the division for a reason, whether he's playing off the left or the right. A little bit of a naughty shove on De Kuiper into the advertising hoardings, but I just think Semenyo's two-footedness, unpredictability, he's fantastic to watch.
I mean, we wondered pre-season how all these departures were going to affect Bournemouth, losing almost their entire defence and their starting goalkeeper from last season. But their calling card as a team is their pressing. And at the risk of making a slightly basic sounding point, the players that do the pressing in a team are the forwards and the midfield. So the pressing unit has not been dismantled at all. And I think that's why they're able to play with something that resembles continuity with last season, because the forward players, be that Semenyo, be that Evan Nielsen, Marcus Tavernier, they're still doing the same jobs. And they've signed very good defenders who've come in, and kind of slotted in and taken the places of the players who've left. But yeah, looking very good.
Truffer looks better than Kirk has.
Truffer looks very good. Yeah. The only sort of... actually, no, you can scratch that because that doesn't make any sense.
While we're stopped, I should drop a line into the Villa chat because I said that Frank de Boer's Crystal Palace, and then I never explained why Villa. Well, indeed, the connection with Frank de Boer's Crystal Palace, Unai Emery's side are the only... and indeed, the connection with Crystal Palace and Frank de Boer, it's only the 5th time that a Premier League side has failed to score in their opening 4 games, and the first time since Frank de Boer at Selhurst Park.
Can anyone name the 3 others?
Go on then, Tom.
Oh, no, actually, no, there's no point doing that. It's only because I looked up the stat
Go
every
on.
weekend. Who? Sheffield Wednesday, 93-94.
Uh-huh.
Newcastle United, 2005-06.
Really?
And Swansea City, one season or other, I think. So, I mean, yeah.
One of the Swansea seasons.
National teams for you.
There you go. Thanks, Charlie. Use that as you will. Very good. You just finished saying something and then not saying it, yes. Which was...
I'd made a relatively coherent point about Bournemouth, and I was about to add another point, and I decided not to.
Not to do so. Okay. Also, on this match day 4, Palace had a 0-0 draw with Sunderland, who got what they came for. You would probably sum that game up by saying, and perhaps move on to the Cottagers, who got their first league win of the season in a 1-0 victory over Leeds, and it came in dramatic fashion. Jay?
Yeah, I mean, I feel for Goodmanson a little bit.
What did he do, Jay?
He just... this was explained to me.
I don't think he knew anything about it.
This was explained to me before I saw the goal, and so I was going in expecting nonsense, and I still didn't quite predict that. The corners come in, I think it's the 94th minute of the game, and he basically falls backwards and heads it right into the top corner of his own net. And I think there's a Fulham player and Joe Rodon who I think jump immediately in front of him, which clearly obscures his view, because the way it hits his head and he falls backwards is almost as if he just had no idea what was about to happen. But it is like a scene out of, I don't know, Only Fools and Horses or something like that. You've been framed.
You'll often see a sideline reporter, I say often, you will sometimes see a sideline reporter hit on the head. There was a famous BT Sport example by some well-aimed ball hoofed at them during the warm-up. And it very much reminded me of that.
And yet in written coverage of a game, a goal like that is invariably described using one adjective and one adjective only, and that adjective is bizarre. A bizarre own goal. And in everyday parlance, you would save the word bizarre for something really weird.
Yeah.
Like a dog riding a bicycle down the street would be a bizarre sight.
That's true.
In like football parlance, bizarre seems to be the go-to word for anything
calamitous,
slightly unusual. You might also get calamitous, but you get a lot more bizarre in football coverage than I think you should.
Should say that Farke said, and maybe he was just not exaggerating, but Farke said that Goodmanson was in tears in the dressing room afterwards because, feel bad for him because I think Leeds have scored 1 goal, a penalty, which was in the opening game as well. So very much they're going to sort of have to rely on being defensively solid. They lost out on Buonanotte the final few days of the transfer window. So to come so close to getting a point and to throw it away in that fashion stings.
So the 94th minute. Yeah. Handing Fulham, as I mentioned, their first victory of the season. So well done to them at least. Very good. It's a busy week ahead. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday with the Champions League. Previewing it all is Totally Football Show European Edition. Early on Tuesday, we'll have shows for you on Thursday afternoon, actually, and Friday afternoon. No point in rushing it. And then, we'll have another round of Premier League action. For now, anything you want to add to that steaming pile of words, Tom?
I think that's enough steaming words to be getting on with.
Right, okay. Many thanks to you for coming in. And to you too, Duncan, and to Jay in the booth, Jake and producer Charlie. To you at home, or wherever you might be. Whether you're listening on the podcast or watching us via YouTube, many thanks for being part of it. We'll look forward to speaking to you again soon. For now, from all of us here, it's goodbye.